Welcome to another episode of Going Hot. Today we're looking at an old Ruger Police Service 6 in 357 Magnum. Going hot! Here we are back at range number 1. Today we're going to be testing the Magtech 158 grain jacketed soft point 357 Magnum. If my recollection is correct, I didn't bring my cheat sheet with me. It's 1,250 feet per second. It'll be coming out of the barrel of that old Ruger 4-inch of mine. So let's get at it. Today we're using a store-bought rutabaga again. Yeah, I hate to say it, but that's what we're using. We're going to get it clad here in his blue jean outfit, get him over there and go hot. Going hot. There you go, dead center on the rutabaga. I have a problem finding that bullet though. I think it slipped out and went in the backstop. Back to the shop. If I do it, we'll talk about it. Here we are back in the shop. Well, no, we're not, and there's a reason for that. That's because since we shot that footage down there at the range, we've had the temperature go from 32 degrees to -10 in 36 hours, and we've also had approximately 17 inches of snow in that time period. So it's a little cold up in the shop, so we're here in the tack room where it's warm. There you go, there's my explanation. And before we get on to talking about the ammo we were shooting today, let's look at the gun. Today we're shooting a Police Service 6. Of course, this is a gun that's no longer being made by Ruger. It's part of their 6 series, which was the Security 6, the Police Service 6, which is basically a fixed-sighted version that was marketed to security agencies and police departments. And then there's the Speed 6, which is a little smaller grip frame, rounded. Again, a fixed-sighted firearm. It was more intended to be sold primarily to plainclothes operatives or undercover operatives. Most of those are in a shorter barrel, 2 3/4 inch. All these things are, you'll find examples of the Security 6 with fixed sights instead of adjustable sights. You'll find examples of the Police Service 6 with adjustable sights instead of the fixed sights, and you'll find examples of the Speed 6 with a longer barrel. And yeah, they pretty much made whatever somebody wanted back in the day. Of course, nowadays these have been replaced with GP 100, which is really a beefier gun, better made as far as being rugged and reliable. It's also a bigger gun and a heavier gun. I really like this firearm more than the GP 100 because of the size and because of the grip frame. It actually has a grip frame instead of, if you've had a GP 100, you know there's a little horseshoe affair and the grip fits over it. So this is more the classic revolver design. This is what we were shooting today. 4-inch barrel, 357 Magnum, happens to have the optional spurless hammer on it, which were kind of a funny deal. They still had a full cock notch and could be cocked, and actually have checkering on the top so you can grab it with your thumb. It's kind of a weird deal. You have to kind of cock it or pull the trigger back with your finger and then grab onto it. I don't know who, if anyone, ever used that. Yeah, because, who'd want to do that? Here's the ammo we were shooting. It's a Magtech. It's on this side. 357 Magnum, 158 grain, semi-jacketed soft point. I've looked at this on a couple different websites, and they tout it as being a soft point that'll deform and increase its size and wound channel, which, okay, not so in a rutabaga. We've established that. Let's take a look at the round. It's traveling at 1,230 feet per second when it leaves the muzzle. Here it is. It's a flat nose, soft lead projectile that's semi-jacketed. And it went through the rutabaga and left a nice hole in the rutabaga, and part of the side we lost. It went through 5 water jugs, which is a lot in our tests. It skimmed the last one because it was kind of headed a little off keister, which is usually how Mr. Holster shoots. And it skimmed the last one and lodged in the backstop, and I put a dowel rod in the hole, and it went in 8.5 inches before it hit that bullet. I didn't feel compelled to take apart the backstop to reclaim the bullet. And due to the weather circumstance, I didn't feel compelled to do the test again. So it left a hole in the plywood, because that's plywood and OCB stacked, alternated, and it left a hole in it the size of the casing. So I don't see that any real deformation occurred on that bullet, because the hole doesn't back it up. I think what we have here is a lot what we had with the Magtech. Remember this one, and you can go through the link on my Going Hot that I put on here, the other episodes, and look at this one. The Magtech 38 Special we shot through that Ruger Match Champion. If you remember that, we had very little expansion on this hollow point. This is the same bullet, only this one's a hollow point, and this one, it's a solid, soft lead flat nose. Same 158 grain bullet, semi-jacketed. This is Magtech's 38 Special. This is the 357 Magnum. And I'm not sure about the velocity on this. I keep thinking it was 800 or 880 feet per second. You'll have to go back and look at that video to find out if you're that interested. But at any rate, we decided in that thing that the expansion wasn't enough to slow the thing down. It didn't transfer its energy to what it hit, and it kept going through water bottles. Same thing here. This would have easily gone through that 6th water bottle if it hadn't have been askew due to Mr. Holster's angle of shot. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. It might have changed its variation by the water, but I don't think so. I think it was because my angle was that way. I think it would have gone through that and still lodged deeply into the backstop. So I guess the lesson here to be learned is, along with the bullet being one that's going to expand and transfer that energy to what you're shooting at, you have to take into account the powder charge and velocity of that thing, make sure it's strong enough to actually get that kind of expansion out of the bullet. Now we saw what this bullet in a 357 Magnum does. That was not a Magtech, that was the Hornady round that we shot. And that expanded very nicely. It actually, if my recollection is correct, shed a good portion of the lead in the process and only made it into the, I think it penetrated the first and lodged in the second water jug is my recollection. But again, you can check that out on the link to the Going Hot shows. There you had a bullet that was able to expand because it was going at the right velocity, and it transferred its energy to what we shot at, which is, you know, probably what you want, unless there's applications, of course, for this type of thing. You want the penetration. I suppose I'm not a big deer hunter, but I would think in a lever action rifle, deer hunting, where you don't want to have the expansion and doing damage to the meat, that might be the ticket. Anyway, it's interesting to, our redneck science here, interesting to do these tests on those rutabagas and see what we come up with. And what I'm just really doing it to try and see the expansion, but that's part of the deal. How much velocity does that design bullet need to do what it's supposed to do if it's a hollow point? And I say if it's not expanding, either the bullet's of poor design or they're putting a bullet in a round that doesn't have the velocity to make use of that bullet. And it's nice to know whether they expand or not. Yeah, there you go. So that's it for this week. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll leave you a little snow footage at the end of this. And thanks again for watching another episode of Going Hot. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Going Hot. Till next time, from Mr. Holster and Jack, go out and stay safe. Now there they go, guys.